You and the person at the next desk clear the exact same amount on the exact same day. Same title, same raise, last spring, the same deposit landing while you both pretend to read email. And you will retire 34 years apart, not 3. 34, same salary, same city, same starting line. The gap isn't talent or luck or some quiet inheritance nobody mentions. It's one number, and almost nobody in that office could tell you theirs. Be honest about your own for a second. Your keep rate is mostly whatever the month didn't take from you in a parking lot somewhere, not a plan. A survivor. Jake's the same way. He's been clearing that deposit for over a decade, and he assumed, the way you might be assuming right this minute, that the raise was the answer. Here's the part the handbook skips. The thing that decides when you get to stop working isn't how much lands in the account. It's how much never leaves. And the number that quietly runs your entire life is one you've probably never written down once. We'll get to what it does to Frank in a minute, because Frank is the twist. Your keep rate. The share of every paycheck that doesn't evaporate by the time the month is done. Not what you earn, what you keep. That's the variable. Same salary, decades apart, and the only thing that moved is the slice you held onto. Most people couldn't name theirs if you offered them a prize, which is a strange thing to admit about the single number that decides whether you work 17 years or 51. For a figure that important, the near total ignorance of it is a mild oversight. So let's run the experiment, because it's cleaner than any speech. Take two people on the identical paycheck. Same take-home, same town, same prices at the same grocery store, same Friday. Change exactly one thing, the keep rate, and watch the rest of their lives split open down the middle. Jake keeps about 10% of his, and that's not reckless. That's better than average. Better than most of the office, the responsible adult number everyone nods along to at a dinner party. But the math underneath it is brutally patient. On that rate, he works about 51 years before the money can carry him without his job. 51. He started young, so the finish line lands deep in the years most people are quietly praying they're already done, assuming nothing breaks. No layoff, no bad decade in the market, no surprise that empties the account he was counting on. A whole working life spent doing the exact thing you were told to be proud of, and still arriving late. At Mr. Sense, we spend way too much time chasing the one number a raise can't fix. So if you've ever gotten the bump in pay and watched your account get tighter anyway, you're in the right place. We break down one money trap every other day, and this is the one hiding in plain sight on your own pay stub. Now meet the twist. Frugal Frank, same desk clearing deposit, same paycheck to the dollar, keeps half of his. And the curve doesn't reward him a little for that. It rewards him obscenely. The same math that handed Jake 51 years hands. Frank 17, same salary, same start. One of them is free before the other one's car's even paid off. And it keeps getting steeper. Push the keep rate past 2/3, and you stop counting your remaining work in decades and start counting it in single-digit years. Every 10 points you add to your keep rate doesn't shave a little time off the end. It collapses whole chunks of your life back into your hands. And the keep rate doesn't just buy years at the end, it buys a word in the middle, the most expensive word there is, which is no. The month their shared boss turns poisonous, Jake does the quiet math and stays because the mortgage doesn't care how he's treated. Frank, on the identical salary, can look up from the same meeting and decline. He isn't braver than Jake. He just spent years quietly buying the option to walk, one paycheck slice at a time, while Jake spent the same paychecks renting his own calendar back from people who own it. That's what the slice actually purchases long before retirement. It's not money in a vault, it's the power to say the thing you can't currently afford to say. And this isn't a theory somebody scribbled on a napkin. A regular software engineer, Pete Adini, who wrote about it under the name Mr. Money Mustache, walked away from full-time work in his early 30s on an ordinary engineer's salary for exactly one reason. He kept a huge share of what he earned instead of spending it, and he published the curve we are walking right now more than a decade ago. That's not a tech genius miracle, and it's not a tech genius mistake. It's the keep rate, and it's the same lever sitting under your own paycheck, just with fewer zeros. So why doesn't everyone pull it? Because the entire economy is one very patient salesman, and the only product he sells is your next raise, handed right back to you, one monthly payment at a time. Meet the other twin. Marcus got the same bump in pay Jake got, and he threw at a parade. A bigger apartment, a faster car, a watch that also, against all odds, tells time. Congratulations were in order, and the economy mailed him a certificate of arrival. The certificate turned out to be a car payment. A year later, his keep rate hadn't budged a single point, because every new dollar already had a new bill bolted to it before it cleared. Marcus didn't get a raise. He rented a slightly nicer life from one, monthly, with interest. And then there's the loudest one in the building. Influencer Bella looks by a mile like the richest person any of them know. the trips, the unboxings, the kitchen that costs more than Jake's car. Bella keeps almost nothing. Call it a nickel on the dollar. Most of it borrowed against the next brand deal. The look is the product, and the product is ruinously expensive. She isn't the cautionary tale because she's foolish. She's the cautionary tale because she's doing, on camera and for applause, exactly what the salesman recommends to everyone. The most visible wealth in the room is sitting on the lowest keep rate in the room. That's not an accident. That's the whole business model working perfectly. And here's the number that should genuinely stop you cold. Across the entire country, the average person keeps about 2.6% of their income right now. 2.6. Plug that into the curve we just walked, and the average American isn't on a 4-decade career. They're on something a lot closer to never. On a 2.6% keep rate, the working years outlast most marriages, a couple of governments, and the warranties on every car they'll ever finance. The factory default on the whole economy is the slowest possible path to the door, and nearly everyone is running it without knowing the dial exists. Now look at it one more time. The two of them side by side, because this single frame is the entire video. Jake and Frank, identical salary, same deposit, same Friday, same fluorescent office. Frank's finish line is $625,000, Tynyan, because he taught himself to live on less, so he simply needs less to be free for the rest of his life. Jake's finish line is $1.2 million, dear, because his spending set his target, and his spending runs high, so the wall he's walking toward is nearly double Frank's. Same paycheck. One of them is aiming at a number twice as far away, and walking toward it at half the speed. And the distance between those two finish lines, when you stand the twins next to each other, is 34 years. 34. That isn't a statistic. That's Frank at his kid's Tuesday afternoon game while Jake is still answering email he'll only have to answer again tomorrow. It's a third of a life handed to one twin and quietly billed to the other on identical pay. Nobody robbed Jake. No villain skimmed his account in the night. He simply spent the same paychecks Frank kept, and the gap compounded in the dark until it had swallowed 3 decades. Say it out loud. 34 years. Decided entirely by a percentage that nobody in that office tracks. If finding your own line on that curve just rearranged something in your chest, that's the whole channel. Subscribe, because the next number we map is yours too. And it's a different part of your scoreboard than this one. Here comes the pushback, and it's a fair one. Right now somebody is typing, "This is completely useless if your income barely covers rent." And they are not wrong. They're right in a way that actually matters. For the bottom half of earners, saving isn't a discipline they're fumbling. The math genuinely is not there. For the lowest earners, spending runs past income every month, propped up by debt just to stay level. The typical renter making under $30,000 a year has been left, after rent and the lights, with roughly the price of a single tank of gas. You cannot keep half of a paycheck that's already spent before it lands. Telling that person to just raise their savings rate isn't a money tip. It's an insult holding a calculator. So here's the honest line, and it's the entire reason this works. The keep rate doesn't shame the renter with nothing left at month's end. It targets the earner with slack, the one who got the raise and spent it, the one whose lifestyle quietly rose to swallow every gain the second it arrived. If there is any room at all between what you make and what you truly must spend, the keep rate is the most controllable number in your whole financial life. You usually can't change your salary this year. You can almost always change your keep. So the decision rule is blunt. If you've got any gap, that gap, not your income, is where every bit of your leverage is hiding. And the leverage runs in 2 directions at the same time. We call it the double lever, and it's the most underrated math in personal finance. When you cut spending, you don't only save more, you also lower the entire finish line you're saving toward, because a smaller life costs a smaller number to fund forever. Cut $5,000 out of a year of spending, and you don't just bank $5,000. You bank that, and you erase roughly $125,000 from the target you've been chasing. One decision, 2 payoffs at once. It is the rare move in money that pays you today and then keeps paying you for the rest of your life, which means your next raise was never a lifestyle upgrade waiting to happen. It's a rate decision. And the single most reassuring fact in this entire field is that you don't have to win that decision with willpower. You can win it with a default, the exact same way the economy beats you with one. Researchers ran precisely this experiment. Instead of asking people to feel poorer today, they let workers promise their future raises to savings before the money ever touched their hands. Nobody ever felt a pay cut because each raise went straight to keep before it could become a parade. Their savings rate nearly quadrupled, climbing all the way to 13.6%, the kind of number that actually gets people out. And almost nobody quit the program because at no point did anything actually hurt. That's the whole trick. You do not out-discipline the salesman. You automate the keep before the spending reflex even wakes up. So you become the kind of person who, the day the raise lands, decides the keep first and then lives on whatever's left, instead of the kind who lives on all of it and saves whatever the month didn't mug them for. Picture it on a real Monday. The raise hits, and before it can quietly turn into a bigger apartment, a fixed slice peels off the top and vanishes into the part of your life that buys back your future. You never see it. You never miss it. The lifestyle you'd have inflated into simply never gets the chance, because the money was gone before your eyes ever landed on it. The apartment stays the same, and the finish line comes sprinting toward you. That is Frank's entire secret, and it was never a bigger paycheck. He built a life that could shrug off a recession, a layoff, and a surprise hospital bill. And the only thing that life genuinely could not survive was a brand new car payment. So he simply never signed for the car. One more time, slower. The freedom was never in the size of the salary. It was always in the size of the slice. And here's why no one ever hands you that number. Not the bank, whose whole model quietly assumes your money keeps moving through it. Not the lender, who earns nothing on the dollars you decide never to spend. Not even most advisors, who don't get paid on the life you simply don't buy. The keep rate is the one figure in your entire financial life that no institution profits from you. Understanding Gnostic, so consider this the meeting nobody ever scheduled to walk you into. You don't need a higher salary to start. You need to look at the very next deposit and decide, on purpose, what stays. So picture that desk one more time, and the person beside you clearing the identical deposit. The difference between the two of you was never going to be the next raise. You've watched exactly what Marcus did with his. It's going to be the share you decide to keep, starting with the very next paycheck that lands. That's the line that quietly splits a career from a life. 34 years? Hiding the whole time inside a single percentage you're allowed to change this month. So which line did you actually land on? And be honest, is it the number you tell people or the real one? Drop it in the comments. The spread always surprises everyone. If you want the version of this that maps your net worth instead of your paycheck, the net worth floors breakdown is the next one to watch. And if this finally made the math click, like it. Subscribe to find out where you stand on the rest. That's the whole series. And turn on the bell, because the next number we map is yours too. The salary was never the thing. The slice was. It always was.